Hey guys, in today's video, we are going to do a Q&A session with Maya, who is a recent bootcamp graduate. We are going to ask her why she decided to do coding bootcamp, how that experience was like, and what is she doing now. Welcome, Maya, and thanks for spending the time today in this channel to talk about kind of your bootcamp experience. Thanks for doing this Q&A. So I think first things first is, let's introduce yourself, I guess, to our viewers and tell us a little bit about how you got into coding.
Sure, yeah. So my name's Maya, and I went to the Flatiron Bootcamp, and I got into coding kind of a weird journey getting into it. I feel like I was always an internet kid, right? Like I was the kid that carried around my Nintendo DS everywhere and was like always playing, I don't know, Harvest Moon and Sims was like my
Awesome,
passion
yeah.
in all of my childhood. And I got really into Tumblr in like 2013, I want to say, before Yahoo bought them out. And it was, in my opinion, it was like the best time to be on the internet and on Tumblr in particular. And there was this huge explosion of people like customizing their pages and, all the stuff that is like bad internet etiquette to us now, but like putting their playlists on there and
Right, right, right.
really wacky pages. And I was all about it. So that was really my first experience coding. I like collaborated with some people that I had met online and they helped me build out this like really cool website for my Tumblr. And I just really was interested in creating kind of my own vibe on the internet and really expressing myself on the internet in that way. And then I went to school. So that was when I was in high school. And then when I was in university, I studied art history and Spanish translation, which has nothing to do with tech. And I was working at the time at Starbucks, and
Hmm.
I was also working as a gallery manager for a local gallerist in Philadelphia. And in both of those roles, I started to become exposed to different types of technology, like management type
Right.
technology services, administrative work, like Monday.com in particular, as well as internal, like Starbucks, different applications that we were using. And I became more and more curious about, like, okay, how do people use these in their day to day life? And more importantly, once I became a manager, why are we using these certain things? Some of
Right,
these things
right.
don't really fit all of our needs. They don't really do what we want them to do. Who builds these? What do they think when they build them? What do the requirements look like? And so I started kind of like looking at things with a more critical eye from a tech perspective. And I was a manager during COVID at Starbucks. So COVID was a whirlwind for everyone, but especially being a business leader for a brick and mortar cafe, it was a huge deal for me. And it actually made my job super fun. I loved it. Everything was changing all the time. I was learning on the fly, constantly training people on new things and learning them myself. And I loved that. And then COVID kind of slowed down, which is
Sure.
great for the world. But for my job, it meant that my job was no longer learning new things every day. It was rather going to the same meetings every couple of
Right.
months, doing the same work every week. And yeah, I started realizing that I didn't really want to be on the clock Monday through Sunday from 4 a.m. to 9 p.m. And I didn't want my problems to be someone calling me at 3 a.m. and saying, I can't come into work. And I had to
Right.
figure out, I was like, these are not the problems that I want to be solving in the long term, right?
Sure.
And a couple of friends in my circle have worked in software engineering and in development and consulting for tech. And I was expressing my qualms to them about what I was going through. And of course, they were all working from home and, loving the COVID lifestyle. And one day they were just like, you're like really unhappy with the position that you're in. Have you ever thought about maybe like going to a boot camp or
Hmm.
learning something about software and development? And it really never occurred to me. I was at such a point of burnout in my retail career that
Hmm.
I couldn't even like honestly see through to the next day.
Right.
And so I needed an out, and when I got this recommendation from a friend, it was one of the most perfect opportunities for me. I realized that wow, this could be a launching point for myself into a career which has the work-life balance that I want, that also has a paycheck that I'm interested in,
Right.
and could really offer me really just a better quality of life overall. And so that's really what got me into it, and why I'm into it now.
Nice, awesome. Wow, that's very descriptive. Thanks for sharing all of that. I'm sure a lot of people can relate in some way or form. I've met a lot of people who's went to some sort of similar journey where, they're really not that happy with like the way things are going, or with what kind of the job that they're doing. And so having other people around you to kind of give some input, and or maybe ignite that fire in you again, since you've started even back in high school, like tinkering with tech and programming and stuff like that. So I think super cool. Can you tell us how you decided to kind of like start off this this career change? You went through a boot camp, but did you explore first, what if you just tried to do it all by yourself?
Yeah, so I was in a position where I still had to pay my rent, right? I still had
Mm-hmm.
to work my day job. And so I wasn't someone that knows a lot about tech. My password to my phone is literally all zeros. Like I don't get really involved in all of it.
Hopefully that's
Um,
not the case anymore. In case
no, it
someone.
totally is. If you want to hack me, you can, honestly. But yeah, so when I was thinking about, okay, would I do a self-taught route? And I'm
Right.
someone I'm a pretty like self-motivated person. I really like having a routine and I like kind of knowing what my roadmap looks like. And because of those things, and because I had a day job that I was working, 30 hours a week to pay my bills, I wasn't really prepared to invest the amount of time that it would take personally to go the self-taught route. I really admire people that do it and I
Mm.
think it's awesome. And I don't think there's a better way like boot camp or self-taught. I think that you can learn very similar skills, maybe
Mm.
even better skills
Right,
going the
right, right.
self-taught route. But for me, I really needed the structure that a boot camp was going to provide. And so that was worth the money for me. And yeah, I feel like I also wanted some structure in terms of like projects and building a portfolio. Again, I'm not someone that has ever had like a tech portfolio before
Sure.
or a portfolio of any kind.
Right.
And so going through a boot camp really allowed me to get kind of like guided assignments and rubrics of
Makes
what my
sense. Yep.
projects would look like.
Mm-hmm.
And it also helped me build like so that prospective employers could see that I have gone from, learning a little bit about tech to knowing a lot about tech now, and that I have a growth. There's growth in my work. And I think that the boot camp really offered me that. So that's why I went that route.
Okay, cool. Great. Thanks for that explanation. I think a lot of people again will relate to that. People always have something going on. It's not that like, oh, we can just drop everything, right? And start from scratch. And I think it makes sense, your explanation, where you needed someone to kind of like tell you how to structure your day in terms of learning all these new things, really. So kind of diving deeper into kind of this bootcamp thing, how did you figure out which bootcamp to join? Did you just know immediately? Was it referred to you, or yeah, did you explore other programs? And then which bootcamp did you end up choosing?
Yeah, so the friend that first recommended to me like that I might want to learn about software engineering and development recommended Flatiron School to me, and
Okay,
I honestly didn't know much at the time about that boot camp in particular or any of the other boot camp options
sure,
that are out there. And so I just looked it up, and the things that I was most concerned with was I wanted to have a program that was flexible in some way, that I
right.
didn't have to be on like someone else's time frame. And I also was looking for a program that had scholarship opportunities. And Flatiron does have, at least when I applied, they had two different scholarship opportunities,
Oh,
which
okay,
I believe were for, I think, a total of like $3,000 maybe.
okay,
And so I was looking for something that would give me some type of financial support.
right, right.
And also the Flatiron Bootcamp, they allow you to pay for it in monthly increments, so you don't have to pay it all up front.
Okay,
And that was something that was really important to me as well, since I was kind of bankrolling the whole thing and trying to figure it all out. And yeah, so I really honestly didn't do that much research. I feel like now that
gotcha.
I'm a little more in the tech community and I see other people that are trying
Right.
to figure out how to start their journey, people do a lot more research. And I think I would do more research if I were to do it again. But I do think I got lucky with the recommendation that I got. And I think
Okay.
Iron really fit the needs that I had. And I mean, ultimately, I think it served me really well.
Okay, cool. And the friend that recommended you this boot camp, did they go through the same boot camp? Is that because I think you gave me the sense that they really highly recommended it.
Yeah, so my friend that recommended it to me didn't go through the boot camp.
Mm,
He is like a tech consultant,
gotcha.
and he lived in New York for a while, and Flatiron had like a brick and mortar school there before they started offering
Mm.
online curriculum. And so he used to pass by it all the time on his way into the office. And I think that's just why it stuck in his brain. But he's like Flatiron's number one advocate, even though he hasn't gone through the program. He's recommended to like everyone. I think at this point he's gotten like 5 different people to
Does he
go.
work for them in some way, like
No,
a
and
influential marketer?
he does not. And I keep telling him, like, dude, you need a referral code or something. Like,
Yeah.
you are really out here pushing the program. But yeah, it worked out that way, and that's why I ended up going that
Gotcha.
route.
Great, great. Okay, awesome. Yeah, so let's talk a little bit. You touch a little bit on the liking the curriculum and stuff like that, I think. So let's go a little more high level on all the things within your bootcamp experience right now that actually, can you tell us when you started the bootcamp and when it ended to begin with?
Yeah, so I started the boot camp, I believe it was October 2020, 2021, I think, maybe
Okay,
2022. And it took me, I think, like 12 to 13 months to complete the curriculum. I was initially on a 10-month flex program, kind of like
okay,
roadmap, but I did take a little bit longer. That was something that I really liked about Flatiron was that, like, I had never been in a position before being a retail manager where my family wanted to go on vacation and I
right.
actually got to say yes. And so I really leaned on the flexible aspect of the program so that I
Got
could
it.
maintain a balance between learning and really growing constantly and also taking care of myself and my mental health. So, yeah, it took me a little longer than I think most people, but it
Sure.
ended up being worthwhile. And I think it really fostered like a love for programming for me rather than just like a means to an end to get a job in
Right,
tech.
right. That's interesting because yeah, I've talked to other people, some who went through the same boot camp, which is Flatiron. I didn't know that they had different programs like these. Most of the people I talked to were just in like the kind of like the full time 4 month, 3 months, something like that. But that's interesting to know that there's that option, right? Is does that mean that basically it's more of a part-time work week to week, or how kind of is the curriculum structured in that sense?
Yeah, so they give you kind of a guideline for like how many months you want to complete it in and what kind of work you need to accomplish every day. And I would just read over that. And the way that I managed my time, I would work 4 days a week and then I would do coding almost all day for 2 days a week.
Okay,
And so I would just kind of compile all of the work that they said I needed to accomplish to stay on track into the time frame that I had available for me to learn
got
programming.
it, got it. And so in terms of that, the guideline that they have, give us an overview of kind of within that 12 months, 13 months, like what things in general did they teach in the boot camp?
Yeah, I think it's really important to like be transparent about what they teach you because there's a lot of boot camps out there. So
Right,
I will be a little specific. There are like 5 phases at Flatiron. So the first phase is very basic, like literally you don't even know how to write a variable or a function,
right.
like completely baseline. And you learn HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. And then you complete a project with that first phase that is in that type of tech stack. And then the second phase, you are introduced to React, so like a library for JavaScript. And so you're really building on your JavaScript skills, but learning a new way to manipulate the DOM, manipulate the front end. And then there's a project associated with that as well. So phase one and phase two are almost entirely front end. And
Gotcha.
then phase three is where you get into back end stuff. So you start learning about Ruby, you start learning about, I think it was Sinatra was one of the things that they were teaching us about. And that also had a project associated with it that was more of a front end and back end project, a
Gotcha.
full stack project. And then phase four was more in depth into Ruby, focusing on Ruby on Rails and Active Record, a gem that you can use in there. And that project for that portion of the curriculum was again a full stack project with a front end and a back end.
Right.
And the fifth phase doesn't involve any additional like curriculum that they teach you, but it's a capstone project. So it's kind of like
Got
your
it.
dissertation if you're like in PhD. And the only requirements were that you could build it in anything that you wanted essentially, but you had to use something that you had not learned before in the curriculum and apply it into your project. But that was up to you what you wanted it to be.
Gotcha.
And for that final project, you did have to present your project idea and the way that your data was going to look and how you were going to, what you wanted everything to look like to your cohort leader, like your professor essentially. And they had to accept your project and say, like, yes, this is a, complex enough project that it does encapsulate everything that we've learned, and it is going to stretch the student to learn new things and delve into new concepts. And then that's it. And then you present your fifth project, and yeah, and then you graduate. And
Nice.
Flatiron
Mm-hmm.
does offer 6 months afterwards of career like progression coaching. So it's really helpful if you've like don't have a lot of experience applying for jobs in tech, if you don't have a lot of experience applying for jobs in general. It really focuses on resume building, practicing mock technical interviews, what it looks like to send emails, what it looks like
Right,
to get
right,
rejected, how you can try to get people to listen to you, and
right.
on LinkedIn, really just teaching you those like networking skills and things that people might not have learned in a technical, like in the tech industry.
Gotcha, gotcha. And so you were mentioning a little bit about, you have a cohort leader and instructor. So in this program, you did have someone that's kind of like instructing or teaching you. How does that, relationship look like? Because it seems like it's in somewhat sense a self-paced thing. So are
Mhm.
there someone there that's just always available when you have questions? Or yeah, can you expand a little more on that stuff?
Yeah, so essentially, when you join the program, you have a cohort leader. So you are in a cohort with, I mean, anywhere from 20 to like 60 other people
Got
that
it.
are at the same pace that you are going through the program.
Mm,
And you are all assigned a professor or a cohort leader, and that individual is there. They have a really active Slack at Flatiron, which is really great. You can always ask for help in the Slack. There are curriculum specific different Slack channels, and really what your cohort leader is there to do, at least at my time there, was we were required to have 2 meetings for every phase of our curriculum with our
okay.
cohort leader. And transparently, I didn't really utilize my cohort leader that much. I'm
Mm,
someone that like puts my head down. I work really hard. I will like figure out a problem if I have one. And so I didn't really lean on the cohort leaders as much as they are available for. They host like open office hours once a week typically, and they're really there to support you whether you have like a specific tech question or whether you need advice on, I don't know, like joining a tech meetup in your area,
sure.
giving you ideas of like if you're stuck on an idea for your project, they can help you kind of think through what your next project should be based on what you see for your tech career.
Right.
But for me, I didn't really lean on my cohort leader. I think that you
Mm.
could if you wanted to, but that's just not my style. But I think they were ultimately really helpful.
Nice. Great. Good to hear that. Did you end up working on group projects? You did mention that, yeah, there could be like 60 people in the cohort. Did they ever kind of like, make you, in a way, form a team and work on a project and learn together and stuff like that?
Yeah, so that was not a part of the curriculum. It was definitely an
Mm,
option. You could, if you wanted to, for like one of the 5 phases, if you wanted to work in a group
mm,
on a project, you were totally allowed to. But it's not that it wasn't encouraged, but it wasn't like advertised that you could do that, if that makes sense. Like
for
you
sure,
could
sure.
you could ask for permission essentially, and you could do that way. Um, the person that I am, I'm not that kind of person. I wanted to understand everything all the way and do it all myself. But you totally could have. And I think that that's one of the things that I didn't get out of boot camp that I
Mm,
wish I had gotten out of boot camp is that, a lot of what being in tech is working with other people, learning how
right,
to,
right,
do version control and be a
right,
good collaborator and be a good teammate and like not ruin your code or push
right.
bad code to your GitHub. And so because I didn't take any opportunity to really work on any group work at my boot camp, I had to kind of figure that out after I finished and
For
after
sure.
graduation. But it's the options are definitely there. I think a big thing about Flatiron School in particular, and I'm sure other boot camps, is that you're really in the driver's seat, right? Like,
Mm,
yes, you have all this support. Yes, you have like a strict curriculum. Of course, you have like office hours and live chat if you get stuck on a like a lab or something. But the reality of it is that you're going to get out whatever you put in. So
right.
if you put in a lot of effort and you want to go for the group projects, you want to kind of do bigger and better things, you totally can. And if you just want to learn, you can just put your head down and learn. And either way, you still graduate and you still gain really valuable experiences from it.
Gotcha. Awesome. Great. And just for anyone viewing this, just for reference, because like you said, I think they didn't advertise that group work or anything like that. Although I did meet some people that went to the Flatiron Bootcamp as well, but I think they're not in that flex thing. They're more in like that full
Mhm.
time 4 month thing. And they did mention that some of the projects, at the very least, were group projects that I think they were
Nice.
put into groups, and that you would be doing the actual group project. And I think, yeah, for sure, like the capstone project or things like that were individual ones. But I think, yeah, maybe it is harder to structure a group project when everyone's kind of like that flex scenario. So people are kind of tackling things from their own pace. Cool. Awesome. So now, I guess after this, taking, the whole course, going through it, what would you say, about your experience? Like, did it meet like your expectations? Did it exceed it? Or, yeah, how was it for you, I guess, in the
Yeah.
end?
So, like, overall, the experience in terms of the technical skills that I learned, I
Mm-hmm.
feel like it met and exceeded my expectations. I mean,
Okay.
I went in with pretty much no expectations. I was
Right.
like, let's just do this. Like, I want to learn how to program and I want to learn how to develop things. And so I didn't even know where I was starting. And so for me, the experience was really great in terms of the technical skills that I built. I think that the projects that I made were really, really awesome. I felt proud about them. Like they made me feel really good. And I do think that I went above and beyond the like expectations in our rubrics that we were given for our
Mm-hmm.
phase projects. But that was because I was into it. Like Flatiron did a really good job with this flexible program and the kind of person that I am, that I was really encouraged. I wanted to do more. I wanted to really enjoy the experience and express myself. I will say the only part of the experience that didn't meet my expectations
Sure.
is so when I first looked up Flatiron, one of the things that they kind of boasted was that they had all of these like industry connections, right?
Right. Right.
So they have like, I think they recently changed their website, but they had like some companies listed at the bottom. And I
Right.
remember some like pretty big name companies on there. I can't name them off the top of my head now, but I remember being kind of like wowed and thinking like, okay, so I'm going to graduate this, and they have these exclusive job boards with these industry partners they have, and I'm going to be able to get a job. Like this is
Right.
awesome. And the reality of it is that I feel like that's a selling point for them. But when you actually go
Mm.
through the program and you get to the career progression portion and you gain access to this job board, you start to realize that they might have these industry partners, but those industry partners aren't always hiring.
Right.
And
Right.
also, a lot of the like jobs that were on the job boards weren't necessarily fit for a boot camp grad, right? So I was expecting all the jobs on there to be like junior web developer or junior
Sure.
full stack dev, really
Right.
catered to someone that is graduating boot camp, or apprenticeships that are targeted towards boot camp
Yeah.
people,
Yeah.
because that's hard to find, especially now. Um, and the job board left a lot to be desired. I felt like most of the things on there were like, what we all see on LinkedIn, like
Right.
4 years of
Right.
experience. And if you're someone that just came out of boot camp, you don't have 4 years of experience. Like at best,
Right.
you
Right.
graduate and you have two. Like you don't have four. And so I think that I went in thinking that it would be very easy to get placed in a job with one of their industry partners right after I graduated from boot camp. And
Mm-hmm.
the reality of it is like I said, you're in the driver's seat. So you have to really go out there and look for a job and make connections and do the networking things. And it's not just handed to you. I think that maybe I read into it and thought that, but that was something that definitely didn't meet my expectations. Um, it's not the end of the world. I still have really valuable technical skills that I'm
Right.
excited to share with, my next employer. But I definitely feel like I was led to believe that there would be a lot of opportunities specific to Flatiron people um,
Right. Right.
that weren't there.
Right. So I guess for our viewers, right? Like, these are some of the gotchas, or
Yeah.
things you might want to ask, right? Like when they say like they're partnered with them, what does that partnership actually mean, right? Like,
Hmm.
as you said, things might have changed or anything like that, but it seems like it's just maybe a quick link to the job board of that company, and
Yeah.
it's still like up to you, or maybe there's no, yeah, like you said, no apprenticeship or internship that could, help you really kickstart that career in tech after graduation. Curious, since we talked a little bit about all, some of, like, maybe the not so good side. Are there other frustrations that you felt, while going through bootcamp?
I mean, I think I felt like the general frustrations of learning something new.
Mm.
I mean, as someone I was in a job for multiple years before this, so my job was pretty, it was pretty structured. I knew exactly what I was going to do every single day. I wasn't really learning on the fly. learning something completely new from nothing is really hard. It can feel really lonely. It can be really disheartening sometimes.
Sure. Yes.
But
Yep.
I don't think that that was a fault of the boot camp that I selected by any means. I think it's just par for the course in terms of making a career switch or going into something that you don't have any experience with. And so, although it was, there were low moments in the experience, I will say, like, I look back on my projects and I look back on the connections that I've made with people that have either gone through boot camp or that I've met through boot camp or are alums. And I feel like those highs definitely overshadow the lows that I experienced during the
Got
process.
it. Awesome. Great. Thanks for sharing all that. And so, again, kind of like as a caveat here, Maya is talking about one specific boot camp, right? Like experience will definitely vary from person to person and boot camp to boot camp. But given that we're talking about Flatiron, so what is your overall recommendation? Would you recommend people to go through the same program that you did? And do you think that it's something that maybe they should explore first? We know that you kind of like really just thought about Flatiron. It was referred to you, so you just went
Yeah.
there. Kind of like, yeah. After your whole experience with it, what would you say your recommendation would be?
Yeah, so I think ultimately for people that are in my position that are making a career shift and that
Mm-hmm.
have to work a job while they're learning this new type of technical skills, I would recommend Flatiron. I think that I learned a lot. I think it was worth it. As many moments that were frustrating, it was definitely worth it on the end of it. And I think that I would recommend people do research. Like, I wouldn't recommend people just trust me because, like, I went to Flatiron and I had a great time. I think the reality of it is there's a lot of competing boot camps out there right now. I feel like every day we see more
Right,
boot
right,
camps and people getting different certificates. And
right,
I would do
right,
your research. Does your certificate hold up? Is the alum community for that boot camp legit? Like, do they actually have jobs? Can you
yeah,
find them on
yeah,
LinkedIn? Are they actually keeping that they went to Flatiron on their LinkedIn after they've gotten a job in tech, or are they taking it off their profile? I think things like that are really important to see if it's actually a legitimate thing. And I would say that so one of the things that Flatiron offers is they offer some like free curriculum that you
mm-hmm.
can go through that's very basic level technical skills, but like practicing very simple JavaScript stuff, for example, or HTML stuff.
Right,
And I
right,
would
right,
recommend, if you were going to go to Flatiron before putting the money down and committing and going all in, I would do some of those little courses. They're fun, and also it gives you an idea of the kind of curriculum that there's going to be, how the different like practice problems are going to be set up, and it'll give you a taste of what kind of support there is. Because if a boot camp isn't going to support someone that is curious about joining the boot camp and paying money to go,
right, right,
then they're probably not going to be that supportive when you've already given your money and you're already.
right.
So I think that that's an important thing to think about. And yeah, if I could do it again, I wouldn't have rushed in so quick. I'm not gonna lie. I feel like I just kind of was like, sure, like I'm desperate, I'm burnt out, like I hate my life at that time, and so I just did it.
Mm-hmm.
But with hindsight, I think I would have thought through it a little bit more. And I think something that's really valuable, and I've seen this more and more post graduation,
Mm-hmm.
is like on LinkedIn, people on there will post and say like, hey, I'm between this and this boot camp. Has anyone had experiences at these,
Right.
or does anyone have any recommendations? And I think that's really valuable. People are going to comment back, people will notice it, and they will tell you like, yeah, I'm super passionate about that school, like I loved it, or it was a waste of my money and my certificate means nothing. One thing also to keep in mind is that a lot of these boot camps, they like show kind of their, I guess, rewards and achievements that they've received. And I know Flatiron just got one, like, I think it was like top 10 code boot camps. But take a peek at what those achievements are. Take a peek at who's giving those achievements.
Right, right.
'Cause it's easy to just, we all know how to code a little bit, so we can all put a picture onto our website. But just make sure that it's legit, because I think there are some predatory practices out there, especially with so many people wanting to get into tech. So many people want to, see a different life for themselves. So I think it's important to stay vigilant and do your research before you get into it, because even with the scholarships, it is money, right? And you're
Right.
investing in yourself. So when you're making that investment, do it with the most information that you can have.
Awesome. Those are some amazing, great tips. So I really hope that people find that super helpful because I totally, well, if I was in someone's shoes looking for, starting this career, that I definitely, those are the things that I would do, right? Great. So I know that you've kind of, from our previous conversation, started on some kind of real world job or software
Mhm.
career now. And by the way, congratulations.
Thank
Super
you.
happy for you. Um, Tell us a little bit of what that post graduation experience like to where you are now. Were there, what are the hardships? What are the highs, lows? Things to focus on, I guess.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people leaving boot camp approach the post grad in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll just say very transparently, my experience when I first finished, it was like euphoria, right? I had
Right,
just like
right, right.
committed a year of my life to learning
Yep.
this thing that I didn't even understand before I started. And I felt so proud of myself. I was like on an all-time high the like 2 weeks after finishing. And then it was a really deep low. So
Mm,
I feel like nothing prepared me for what it's like looking for a job in tech, especially when you're just, sitting at home all day, browsing LinkedIn, browsing Indeed, browsing Glassdoor. It's
right,
like really sad. And then you put out a lot of applications, and, because you don't have a lot of experience and you are a
right.
junior and all those things, you get a lot of rejections and you feel like it's never going to end. So I will say that I experienced that.
Mm-hmm.
It was emotional. It was really upsetting at times, but I would say about 3 weeks to a month after my bootcamp graduation, I was like, okay, I've hit the high, I've hit the low. Now I'm back to like my normal self and kind of
Right.
thinking about things clearly. And I would say the biggest thing that I focused on was really strategizing my job search. Like, how am I
Mm-hmm.
going to look for a job? I recently moved to a new place. I was previously in Philadelphia and I moved down to Atlanta. So, really focusing on junior level jobs, apprenticeship jobs, really focusing on applying for hybrid positions. Even though I would love to work remote all the time, the reality is that a remote job for a junior level position is going to get like 2,000 applicants,
Right,
and
right,
a
right,
hybrid job in my area is going to get 200.
right.
So just anything I could do to like weed out other competition
Exactly, exactly.
was really important. And I feel like I didn't go at my job search with that strategy in the beginning, and that's why I got really down on myself about it. But once I shifted my strategy, I feel like I it felt like, okay, I'm doing things, I'm making progress. I got like one interview, so that was something.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so that felt great. But as you mentioned, I am working currently. So the person that recommended Flatiron to me when I finished boot camp, I reached out to him and I was like, hey, I did the thing. He's one of my close friends. So we talk all the time. He knew I was going through all of this. And he hires contractors to accomplish a lot of the tech work that he does through his consulting. And so, I said, hey, like, I did the thing you said. You want to give me a shot? And he did, which is awesome. And I feel like, honestly,
That's
if I
great.
didn't have that connection, like I wouldn't have been working. And
Mm,
for that reason, I feel like I was able to grow my skills in a real world scenario, right? So
right, right,
I'm working on legacy code, I'm meeting client requirements, I'm talking to clients, I'm talking to a boss, I'm pushing things to GitHub and doing pull requests. Like, I'm doing all the things that I would be doing in a full
right.
time job, which is what I want. And so that has been really awesome. I do recognize that not everybody has that, right? That
Yes,
was like a
yes, yes.
super fortunate thing for me to have. And so, I mean, I see a lot of people, and this is something that I personally did before I was able to get into the contract role. And that's really just like practicing every day. Like, go back to your old projects. You've probably learned new stuff or saw new things in newsletters that you've read, or just like, on the internet that you could apply to your project. Make changes to it. There is a lot to be said about posting on LinkedIn. Like, I know it seems kind of weird to do like professional social media, but it's worth it. People notice you. Like, it's fine. No one thinks that you're weird. Everyone's doing it. It's not a big deal. And another thing is joining a network in your area. So I joined Women Who Code, and I
Mm-hmm.
do a virtual lunch with them. I got
Nice.
to meet other people, some people that were
Right,
also graduated boot camp that recently got jobs, or that have even been in tech for, the last 10, 20 years.
right, right, right.
I also was able to go to an in person event, which was one of the most inspiring things I've ever done honestly, since the past like year and a half, I got to see people that, have been through what I've been through, or that are helping people that are going through what I'm going through. And there's a lot to be said for having a support system, especially when you're trying to do something that you've never done before. And so I was nervous to do like in-person networking, but I think it was really valuable and really important. And I made some friends that, we still message each other, we still text each other. And so that is really cool. And I would recommend anyone that's, coming out of boot camp or even going the self-taught route, check out what kind of meetups are in your city. Meetup.com, I think, is where like you can browse a ton of options.
That's a great point. Yes.
Yeah. And so just go. Like, what's the worst thing that's going to happen?
Exactly.
Not
Exactly.
going to say hi to you. Okay, you just leave. Like, that's fine. The best thing that's going to happen is that you're going to make friends. You're going to, get to talk about the thing that you've been doing, probably by yourself. And you're going to get to, have someone that you can lean on. And I think the biggest thing is that networking in tech is what gets you jobs, right? Like,
Right. Right.
people that know people get jobs. People that don't know people don't get jobs. And you need to meet people. So you have to go and do things. And it's easy to say like, yeah, you can virtually network, but it's more important to do it in person. You make an impression,
Right.
you show them how, your personality, and then they're like, oh yeah, like I would want to hire Maya, or I would recommend Maya for something.
Exactly.
So I would say that is like, do that. Don't be too scared. Don't get too nervous. Dedicate the one day to just go do something and meet people. I think
Right.
it's totally worth it.
That's awesome. And so, kind of like to summarize some into two key points, I think, from everything that you've said, one thing I want people to know is that yes, it's gonna take some time, right? Like after you graduate boot camp, I like I said, I've met a lot of people who went through this. It could be from 6 months to a year,
Yeah.
and I want to just put that into people's expectation, because it's not gonna be like that six-figure salary that they're promising. That's rare. That's rare that you're gonna get that
You're not
instantly.
going to get it.
Right,
You're not
right.
going to get it right away.
Exactly, exactly. So unless you're just like some mind blown, like, oh, you get everything, and you got connections, which is the second point. But yeah, like expect that you're gonna put in work, a work
Mhm.
that might be even more than the boot camp, curriculum that you just went through, right?
Yeah.
In terms of time, and then yeah, again, the next key point is yes, networking is super important, as you can
Mhm.
see. It's one way to shortcut or hack your way into like your first job at this career, at this industry, is because you know people, and people always would tend to either help people out or need some help from other people. And yeah, so the more you kind of put yourself out there, you're trying to sell yourself now, right? It's going to be a sales
Mhm.
thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. The more you network, the bigger your chances are, right? Like applications, like you said, you probably sent out hundreds. You're gonna get maybe like 1 to 2% on that. Networking is gonna be a lot more return for your investment on it.
Mhm.
And I totally believe on that stuff. Sweet. Okay. Thanks so much for all that information. I think we've kind of gathered through pretty much like your experience before you go to boot camp, going through the boot camp, and now after boot camp, right? And so I guess we kind of just like want to close out and wrap everything up into what would be like, yeah, your overall advice, top three things, something like that, for people in general who are thinking about starting their, journey in software engineering.
Yeah, I would say the first thing, and this is something that I feel like, especially in the job search, I'm constantly repeating to myself, and that is to manage your expectations.
Right.
Like manage your expectations of yourself, of the boot camp, of other people. The reality is that you're in control of everything. You're the one that puts in the work, and you know it's a lot for yourself to do. So if
Mm,
it's really great some days and you feel on the top of the world, and then other days you feel really down in the dumps, that's okay. Expect that. Like, don't expect it to be super easy. Don't expect yourself to get a job the second that you receive your
right,
certification and you
right,
post it
right.
on your LinkedIn. Really manage your expectations for the boot camp and for your job search. And then the second thing that I would say for people that are going through this process or that are thinking about it is that Like if you're in a rut and you're stuck and you're in a type of career like I was, where, I'm working like 80 hours a week, I'm making a salary, great, but I'm working 80 hours a week, like that doesn't add up. And you're feeling overwhelmed and
Mm-hmm.
you don't really have any skills other than maybe like retail or food service or that kind of thing. I think that tech could be for you. I think that there's a lot of skills that you get from being in retail and get from being in food service. You problem solve on the fly, you think through solutions, and you work with teams every single day. And so I think that it's important wherever you are right now, don't undersell yourself to yourself. You're
Right.
capable of doing things. And if you want to make a change in your life, if you want to shift careers, it doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter, you know, how smart you are or how much experience
Definitely.
you have with
Definitely.
it. If you've never even opened a computer, I genuinely think that you can learn something and
Yes.
then it's worth your time. And I think especially, these days, it's hard. We all want to make money and we all want to have a good life for ourselves. Financials
Mm-hmm.
are scary, the economy is scary, everything's scary sometimes. But
Yes.
I do think that it's genuinely worth it to take the risk, if you feel like you're going to go through with it. And I think, also, if you go through it and you realize it's not for you, hopefully you picked a boot camp that's not that expensive, or you
Right. Right.
route. Because the reality is that you're not failing if you don't end up liking it, or if
Yes.
you don't get a job in
Yes.
a month out of boot camp, or if
Yes.
you don't get a job in 6 months out of boot camp.
Right.
The reality of it is that you tried something new. That's awesome. That's something to really be proud of yourself for. And no matter what your timeline looks like, encourage yourself, keep pushing forward. Um, and yeah, I would say my like third piece of advice for anybody is just really, really driving home, like, you're in charge. You are totally in charge every step of the way. You decide what route you want to take. You
Exactly.
decide if you stick through it. You decide how much work you put in. You decide if you,
Yes.
just copy and paste a lot of code and make it work, or if you actually put thought and effort into it.
Mm-hmm.
And you decide, how great your projects are or how much you go back and fix them up. And the reality of it is that you're in control of all of it, and so you really have to be your own accountability partner through it all.
Right.
um yeah, and I will say, I feel like, just in terms of getting contract work or getting some type of work out of
Mm-hmm.
boot camp, don't expect a six-figure salary. Like,
Right.
it's just not realistic in terms of just where the tech market is right now for jobs and where the tech industry is as a whole. I feel like if you're going into this, you're going into it for the long run of that six figure salary. Don't go into it thinking that you're going to get that right
Exactly.
away. I know for myself personally, my goal was whatever salary I was making in my retail management job, I just wanted to make the same salary, if not, like, I don't know, $5,000 more, right?
Right.
And transparently, I wasn't making good money for what I was doing. So I think the important thing to remember is to manage your expectations with that too. You're not going to make six figures right out of boot camp. You have to grow, and boot camp is just the beginning. That's just your foundation. Everything from there is continual learning, and you just have to stick with it. And do it if you like it, and if you don't do it, you're not failing. You just tried something and it wasn't for you, and that's okay.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing all those. And then just wanted to add there, yes, like year one, you just want to get experience, right? Like
Hmm.
year one in a job, you're looking for really learning in applying the skills that you've learned through either self-paced learning or boot camp. And yeah, like knowing what it's like to be in the industry. Because even though you spend all this time, right? And I'm gonna bring in like sunk cost fallacy and all that, and you've spent money in boot camp. If it's not for you, right? If you realize it's not for you, then you're gonna be in that rut again where it's like you're not
Hmm.
gonna be happy, right? And for some people, so, going into software engineering, into coding, it really fulfills and aligns with their passion, and they're gonna continue doing it. But yeah, I think it's really important that you just get that experience at first,
Hmm.
and then once you have that, that's when you start negotiating, because yeah, I mean, it's going to be a lot easier for you. You're going to be a lot more competitive in terms of your resume. It's just in terms of everything. So again, thank you so much, Maya, for taking the time today. Super appreciate you sharing your experience through this, through the whole process. Would love to have you back in the future. I'm sure you have a lot more to share, maybe how your first job went, right? Sometime in the future. But Again, yeah, if you'd like to, if anyone would like to connect to Maya, I will put her LinkedIn down below. I'm sure she'll be super friendly, by the way. I'm
Yes,
sure she'll be
network with
happy
me.
to help out. Right, right. Leave a comment on the video, and then yeah, we'll put her LinkedIn so you can connect and network with her, and all that stuff. Who knows? Maybe she could be the key to finding your next, you know, job or your first job, right?
Maybe.
Great. Yeah. Again, that's pretty much it. Thanks everyone for watching. All right. So that is it. I hope that this has been helpful and insightful for any of you guys out there that is looking to go through a coding bootcamp or deciding if you want to go through one, or just generally curious what it's like, having experience to go through a bootcamp. So if you have any thoughts or comments, please leave them down below and I'll spend some time into looking and answering those. Again, thanks for watching and see you next time.